Proven, captain-coach of St George for the past 4 seasons, leads his team onto the field.
Australia drives deep into French territory.
What a rugby league try in a grand final! It's over! Rooney's in!
If anybody watched a series of rugby league games, they'd never go back to watching Union or AFL or soccer.
Burke and Rogers, Fulton crosses for his and Manly's second try.
St George shatter the defence as Regular speeds towards the line.
It would be, you know, outside of like boxing as a sport, it'd be one of the toughest games going around.
Oh, what about the tackle? Oh, Stoney's gone straight over the top. Under the score. Newcastle have won the grand final.
Toughness. It was bred on toughness.
Warrior against warrior is combative.
What strength, what power, what a grand final, what a premiership.
Rugby league, the greatest game of all.
They're in each other's face.
Oh, don't you love Sunday afternoon football?
I was trying to tear Arthur's head off 5 minutes before I embraced him and they took that photograph. That's what Australian Rugby League is all about.
It's a fast, thrilling game from the kick-off.
Australia has produced some of the world's sporting greats. A big land with a small population, this country triumphs over adversity.
Oh, he's taken on the ball. It's a try.
One game sums up this never say die approach. It's hard and fast and loved by millions. 100 years on, it's stronger than ever. The story of rugby league is the story of the people who made it. The founding fathers of 1908. The coaches. The commentators.
Hello there, I'm Ray Warren.
The officials, and of course the fans. But the game is built on great players. Fast, skillful men who bring joy to millions.
McCarthy slices into the open space, and the 15.5-stone forward is in no danger of being caught by his pursuers.
A great rugby league player on the field is one that goes out and produces the very best they can for the team, and they produce their individual skill on the field.
Way through to Proven. Proven breaks out of a tackle. He's in the clear here.
You can't take a pill or rub a lotion on your face 3 times a day is going to make you successful, and hard work is the answer.
Here he comes. Shane Webke. He's under the halfway.
You've got to want to be the best. If you aspire for anything less than that, then you've got a problem.
May the 9th, 2008. 100 years to the day since Australia's first ever test match. The team of the century. Their descendants and the stars of today celebrate the past, the present and the future of Australian Rugby League. After 100 years, the Kangaroos jersey is still the greatest prize for the game's greatest players.
They will be playing in the replica jersey, which is the maroon and the blue. Australia didn't adopt the green and gold until 1928.
Today's players are bigger, fitter and faster than ever.
Chipped over the top, and they've tried Castillo is a try scorer. Inglis flies outside the line, but he leaves the in-goal area to do it. That's legal.
Stars like Mark Gasnier and Greg Inglis.
And it's easily cleaned up over here by Greg Inglis. The athleticism of these young players today, I'm just wondering what might be floating through the minds of Norm Proven and Johnny Raper.
Jonathan Thurston, Petro Civoniceva and Israel Folau.
And Israel, he will score. Oh, they don't do things in half measures.
Modern-day heroes in a rich history of Aussie rugby league players.
The talent and the athleticism is taking the game to a new level.
the greatest immortalised in the team of the century.
Clive brought a whole new influence into the game. He was this little man at the back of the 26 on the field, and he was getting the ball and he was beating the big blokes up front.
Clive Churchill revolutionised the way as a fullback. Back in the days that Clive played, the fullbacks didn't run, because he used to run the footy.
Look at Churchill cutting through nicely there, stepping out of a tackle there.
As a fullback, you can think more than blokes up close like the centres and forwards. I can get back there and think what I'm going to do even before I get the ball.
He could produce something that not too many players were ever able to do before.
He was that type of player that all I had to do was give him what he needed and he could do the rest.
On the run with the ball is Harry Wells with the big shadow starting to creep across the ground. He gives a flick pass back inside to Gasnier. And look at Gasnier going right on with the show, chased by Turner. But Gasnier...
Just fly, you know, just pop him a ball and he just, you know, he's gone.
St George shattered the defence as Raper speeds towards the line.
Johnny Raper was the fella that I grew up wanting to be.
Johnny Raper was special because he never stopped moving. Like, he'd come out of that scrum and he'd know exactly what to do.
Raper was the best cover defender that the game has ever seen. I'm sure they wrote the manual after Raper was born. Nobody tackled better than Raper.
Bozer was great. He had all the skills. He could run, he could sidestep, he had everything. Plus he was tough.
Sprinting work and Rogers pull-in crosses for his and Manly's second try.
Speed off the mark was fantastic and his defence was very, very impressive.
Accelerating through narrow openings, the Mercurial Centre goes in for the game's opening try.
Langlands is on target for St George to take a 16-4 lead.
It was impossible to understand somebody could sprint along, be at full speed, put a sidestep on, beat 2 or 3 cover defenders.
He had the will to win, which I think that's what makes all great players, is their desire.
Here's Ronnie Lewis with a stolen ball now. Lewis makes his way uphill. He's got some pace. Lewis, can he go all the way? Still there, he's done wrong. Ronnie Lewis has got...
You were starstruck even playing with him, never alone playing beside him as a halfback 5'8" combination.
He was the epitome of what a rugby league player should be all about.
Lewis is on the stand, and he's...
Absolute legend. I didn't know a bloke who could control the game, make the game faster, slower, who absolutely manipulated the referee, had the skill, had every bit of skill in the game that was known to mankind.
Lewis punching it down into the corner. It'll find touch. Now it goes up. Beautiful kick by Wally Lewis.
To Beaton. Beaton will be there. He'll score.
Arthur was the best ball-playing forward that I think I ever saw.
Beaton getting it to Radonicus.
Greatest forward you've ever seen. Talk about these blokes playing today. Mate, and with him with the 10-metre rule, he'd be ball playing, he'd be unbelievable, he'd be unstoppable.
He'd go in, he'd have 4 or 5 defenders, always go to lock him up, and most of the time you used to hear the commentator say, "Oh, Beatson's got the ball away, and yes, Fairfax has scored a try," and you'd sit back and marvel.
Oh, big, strong, tough. He's without doubt, in my time, the most fearsome bloke to play against.
I think he's one of those wonderful blokes to have around our game, and I reckon we should count ourselves fortunate that we have such a great advocate in him.
And he finds Brett Hodgson. Here they go again. Andrew Johns goes in to score.
Most skillful player, that was the most complete player I've ever played against or with, was Andrew Johns.
The nearest to Johns, he'll score. The captain is in. Andrew Johns.
His debut game, he played with the Newcastle Knights. This boy scored a record amount of points.
Sights a little hole himself. He's close. Reaches out. That's a time.
They call it the ideal performance state. He was in it all the time. That's why he was a freak. He was never overruled.
Well, Andrew Johns, there's nothing left to be said.
The team of the century. People's heroes for the people's game.
It's the highest recognition you can get in the game. That it's not just about being a great footballer, it's about the very spirit of the game. which in fact takes us back to the founders of the game and the spirit that they brought with them.
March 2008. The National Museum of Australia. The Centenary of Rugby League exhibition has opened with 3 members of the Team of the Century, a reflection of the code's importance to Australian history and values.
It is an extraordinary moment in rugby league history and hopefully a point at which people will start to appreciate what an important history the game has.
Rugby league gave us a means for us to voice our support for our local community, for our state, for our country, to prove that we could be the best in the world.
But rugby league has come a long way. Right from its birth, it's had to prove itself time and time again.
Rugby league is the cockroach of sports. You can't kill it. And that is the case. There have been many occasions where people have tried to destroy it. Rugby union in its early days.
Rugby union was the most popular sport in Sydney in 1907, but it had become dull and people wanted something more exciting.
Union wasn't prepared to recognise the fact that blokes were giving up time to train and to play, and there was no compensation for that, but there was no compensation for when you were out injured and you couldn't go to work.
They thought that a gentleman, if a gentleman really enjoyed the game, then the gentleman shouldn't have to be paid to play the game.
What was wrong with rugby union in 1907? In one word, greed and power.
The solution lay on the other side of the world. 12 years earlier, at the George Hotel in Huddersfield, England, a football revolution had taken place.
This was probably the most momentous occasion in the history of football. 22 leading clubs in the north of England decided enough was enough. They were going to break away from the rugby union, form their own competition, pay players what they were worth, and also begin to start the process of making rugby football a more exciting and a more interesting game.
Laws of the game of football as played.
That game was known as Northern Union. Its new rules, radical.
The rugby game of football should be played by 13 players and no more than 13 players on each side. Rule 6, Part C. If a player while...
Northern Union was an inspiration to Australian players hungry for change.
World records were set for attendances at club matches here in England. So the fact that professional rugby, as it was seen at the time, could pay its way and could attract crowds and could provide a more attractive game both to watch and to play, it had its impact in Australia and New Zealand.
Talk of a breakaway code based on Northern Union swept Sydney. But the risks for rebel rugby union players were high.
You could lose your job, you could lose your friends, you could be publicly ostracised. There are even instances of footballers being assaulted and knifed.
You had to be brave and I think discreet as to whether you were interested in joining the new code.
3 people spearheaded the movement toward rugby league. Entrepreneur J.J. Giltinan, Test cricketer Victor Trumper and Labor politician Henry Hoyle.
The trio called a secret meeting of rebel rugby union players at Sydney's Bateman's Hotel.
About 50 players attended the meeting. All of them signed up to join the new code.
The New South Wales Rugby League was born, but the rebels were still in danger.
The league needed to sign a star rugby union player. No star, no crowds, no future.
That star's name was Dally Messenger. The league had to strike fast.
He drew enormous crowds. We're talking 52,000 in 1907.
Because Dally Messenger was so pivotal to the crowds coming to rugby union, they knew that they had to get Dally Messenger on board to make rugby league happen.
Messenger was signed. A massive coup for rugby league.
The signing of Dally Messenger was the most important thing for the future of the game.
Well, if Dally Messenger hadn't signed for rugby league, there'd be no rugby league.
Dally Messenger was the man of the moment, and to get him was the ultimate betrayal, if you like, to rugby union.
Enraged, rugby union embarked on a campaign of anti-rugby league propaganda.
They banned players for life. They started rumours that league games would be rigged, that the league's finances would collapse. They had a lot of clout around town and they weren't afraid to use it.
But rugby league would evolve to represent the very core of Australian values, that of a fair go.
The
course, rugby league, when it first kicked off, was made for the working class man.
People really love the game, love the physicality side of it, and love everything it stands for.
It's now a uniquely Australian spectacle, a game that's tailor-made for excitement, on the field, in the stands, and on TV.
The boys are back in town. The boys are back in town.
A century ago, 9 clubs formed, based on districts. Players subject to a residency rule.
If you lived in that area, you could play for that club, you couldn't play for another club. And it created tribalism, emotion, passion.
The opening round of the Premiership was played off in 2 double headers at Birchgrove Oval in Balmain and also at Wentworth Park in the city.
6,000 paying spectators turned out to see this new and improved rugby. Finally, the game was professional.
The players received compensation for their weekly pay if they couldn't play due to injury, and they also got compensation in relation to their medical expenses.
10 rounds were played. The first rugby league premiers, South Sydney.
It was an ultra-successful start for rugby league. People came out and supported their teams with passion, and this tribalism thing was there, and everything pointed to a very rosy future.
Tribalism and passion has sustained the game into the 21st century. A game for everyone, the people's game.
It's broken up into its tribes. That's what I like about this, is that it is your suburb, your area, the local people.
It's always been a tribal game, and people really, really get behind what side they follow.
Sport's about passion, you know. It's about love of your club. That's where their livelihood is, that's where their tradition is, that's where their love of their colours are.
And people go on a game on a Sunday afternoon and watching their team play, and they forget about everything else. They take all their frustration out on that particular game. All the stress levels disappear because they got the opportunity to support and yell and scream and barrack for their particular club, and that's why rugby is such a great game.
Tribalism and loyalty forged fierce club rivalry.
Well, Parramatta have had rivalry with a lot of sides. At first it started with Manly.
Here we go again. Manly and Para's well ahead, but the gap starts to narrow. Manly's coming back. Seems like they're built out of steel. How do you feel?
I never hated anyone that I played against, but yeah, there was a lot of rivalry on the field when we played against each other.
Show what an eagle can do to an eel. How do you feel?
Club rivalry sold newspapers and beer. Sometimes it got out of control.
And there's a punch-up! Carroll and Harrigan! Look, the tempers are really flaring. Oh, a headbutt went in there, and it's an all-in brawl. There's a brawl around the power.
We didn't speak about putting the blue on, but the blue happened because of me, and I think of Manly and what we're about. Broadhurst then clashed with Steve Bowden, and Steve Bowden gave him the 2 best headbutts you've ever seen.
On-field clashes were to become a rarity. Offenders harshly punished by the judiciary.
A brawl in that game was replayed continuously on news reports for days afterwards and really put the league in a bad light, so action had to be taken.
No longer could the game defend it, and it had to take a stance.
A sellout crowd at Sydney Cricket Ground for the 1966 Rugby League Grand Final between 10-time successive premiers St George and Balmain.
In 1966, St George won the last of a record 11 straight premierships. It was to prove the end of an era, in more ways than one.
In 1967, the league changed from unlimited to 4 tackles, to basically make the game more entertaining and to stop the bash and barge football that had dominated the preceding decade, that had really given St George a lot of its success.
As Balmain tires, Clay's constructive play is a constant threat.
The unlimited tackle rule was becoming very, very boring, and people were just hanging onto the ball for long periods of time, and subsequently it was decided some year or two later that 6 tackles was better than 4, because 4 tackles really didn't give you time to sort of get yourself organised.
Coleman indicates by his arm raised that it's the last tackle.
The change to limited tackles was radical, an indication of rugby league's willingness to experiment and adapt. Another example was the abolition of contested play the balls.
When a player was tackled, what he did was he got to his feet and they would have a mini scrum. So he would drop the ball and they just kicked the bejesus out of the ball until someone picked it up and ran with it, got tackled again. Of course, that doesn't happen today because of the evolution of the game.
If we need to do something to keep on top of keeping the game popular, then let's make a change.
We find a rule that's suited to making the game a better spectacle, making it better for the public to watch, making it more exciting, and making it better for the players.
Well, Michael Mosley has been one of the best winners of the ball against the feed, I would suggest.
Rugby league's next great evolution, its biggest talking point, the scrums.
We were told, well, what we really need is something that looks like a scrum, a decent presentation, they called it.
There was an art with the scrum. You used to compete and used to have a fair 50-50 chance.
So scrum win against the feed. Rugby league was built for the battler, and scrums was a very important part of that game. We've lost that. It's a joke. Why have a hooker? You know, we really haven't got a hooker.
We never packed our scrums properly anyway in the first place. So, I mean, everybody cheated and everybody did what they possibly could to get an advantage. And so why would we, reintroduce that unholy mess?
And a penalty against the Blues for being inside the 10. The 10-metre rule probably is the single biggest revolution behind limited tackle football. And the Blues have been pitched for inside the 10 again.
I mean, they used to play a 1-yard rule in defence. Now you've got to get back 10 metres. Can you imagine doing that for 80 minutes? All of a sudden, they just had to get big athletes who could run and get back and move sideways.
The rules of rugby league are designed to create a fair contest and a more exciting game. They're enforced just as strongly off the field.
Is your club cheats? Look out, roll bowlers over.
August 2002. The Bulldogs are found guilty of breaking one of the tenets of the game.
Turn it off.
Founded on the principle of a fair go.
The club breached the salary cap, not by 1 million, it was more like 2, and tried to conceal the breach in documents handed to the NRL.
The game has had its heart broken in an unexpected and tragic way. They were leading the competition at the time that it became apparent that they were involved in this cheating.
Look, the club did cheat at that point in time.
They left us with very little alternative at that point than to take the 37 points and issue them with a large fine.
They've picked on the players here. We're the ones that are missing out, and it's not really our... We didn't do nothing. We didn't know nothing about it.
$2 million overpayment, just dead set wrong. It's not a level playing field.
We've copped it on the chin, and we've moved on.
Salary cap has been, in many respects, the foundation stone of the game's resurgence. And that has given fans the idea that they can go to the game and know that their team's a chance on any given day.
The big thing that it's done is it's protected the clubs from themselves and protected them from going broke. Because in the old days, when there was no salary cap, well, you could spend money that you didn't have.
There's the hoot-up! Newcastle have won it!
In the early 21st century, salary cap conditions have led to 7 different premiership-winning teams in 7 years.
It's evened the teams out very well, and that was, after all, the purpose of the salary cap. But you can go to a game of football and you can't be absolutely certain which team's going to win. I mean, what could be better than that?
But it wasn't always this way. Back in the 1960s, some clubs dominated while others struggled.
Tutty grasping possession, but St George win 23-4, taking their 11th successive premiership, a world record in any code of football.
With the salary cap, no team can dominate for long periods of time, so you don't see a repeat of the era where St George won 11 in a row. You just can't keep that number of players together for that period of time.
In the dressing room, second rower Dennis Tutty has a leg massage to loosen muscles.
The road to a more level playing field began with a powerful Balmain forward, two-time grand finalist Dennis Tutty. In 1969, Tutty took the New South Wales Rugby League to court, citing restraint of trade.
It was a test case that really was about the rights of players compared to the rights of the clubs to control the free movement of players.
The rugged Tutty and Beatson bring him to a halt.
It's just not right when a guy just poked his finger in my chest and he said, "You play for us, son, or you don't play for anyone else."
Tutty missed 2 years of football and the Tigers' 1969 premiership.
Balmain, its first premiership in 22 years.
The day they won the grand final, I was a pretty shattered guy, and I only wish that I would have been part of that. It did really hurt.
The case lasted 3 years and took a heavy toll.
My health suffered, my marriage ended a few years after it. It was very hard on me all round financially and making ends meet. 3 years just dragged on so long.
Well, Dennis Tutty succeeded with his court case, which basically then brought down the transfer scheme and meant the players could then negotiate freely with any club.
That case allowed for the start of player movement as we know it today, and that keeps strength in all of our clubs.
I feel like I've made quite a few millionaires now out of the other players, more than Harry and Miller.
New rules, the salary cap and unrestricted movement of players have revolutionised the way rugby league is played.
It's all just so dramatic, the changes that have happened from the old days to the modern day football.
The way players are discovered and developed has also changed. It's a process that starts early.
So nice and tell speed, yeah.
Gets it out to Crusher Cleal. Cleal's up the middle of the...
Noel Crusher Cleal was a devastating forward for Easts, Manly, New South Wales and Australia. Now as Manly's talent scout, his job is to identify the stars of tomorrow.
You can make them a little bit faster at the top end, you can make them stronger, you can make them bigger, you can upskill them, but you can't give them any more savvy.
The season is over! Brisbane are the premiers!
The Brisbane Broncos' success is built on junior development. 6 premierships in 20 years. The Broncos' legendary talent scout is former Kangaroo Cyril Connell.
Well, some qualities stand out straight away. For example, a back who can run and change direction without losing any speed. Well, Darren Lockyer's pretty fine at that.
Here's Lockyer with a step off his right foot. He goes through. He breaks them open.
Cyril said, I got a kid here. He said, I think he's really good. I went to Ipswich and I watched him for half a game. I said, make sure we get him, don't lose him.
Darren Lockyer is part of a new breed of player that changed the game in the late 20th century.
It's a goal for Cronin. It's down into Cronin. Cronin is in. Lazarus. Look at the big man go. Belcher, the best player in the Canberra side today. Look at him go. Look at him go. Look at him go. That's close to Marcus. He's got it back. He'll score. Oh, he's a fair dinkum freak, this kid. And Sterling picks up the first try. Kenny has it. He's going to go up the corner. Here he comes. Shane Wimpey. It's Price. 2-1 second. Chance for Australia. Price is in.
Bringing out the best in a great player relies on a great coach.
At the end of the day, what we do is about man management. If you can't manage people, it's very hard to coach. Jack Gibson had a great influence on me. I thought he was great.
Jack Gibson created a club and a team from the day he arrived.
Eastern Suburbs winning their first premiership since 1945, defeating Canterbury Bankstown.
Then he went to America and spent time with the top coaches in the NFL and came back with ideas that had never been seen in Australia in sport.
Jack is outwardly not showing any emotion. Believe me, that man is very near breaking point at the moment.
It was great for Parramatta, it was great for all the guys that were there, and it was terrific for Jack Gibson because he came there especially to do that.
I think Alan Langer said in an interview during the week it'll be worth winning the grand final just to see a smile on Wayne Bennett's face.
He's just a fantastic coach. He knows how to treat every individual differently, knows how to get the best out of them.
You know, he brought skills to the game that weren't being done, I don't think, anywhere in Sydney.
To distribute, there's a try to O'Sullivan.
Well, he came to Canberra for a year in 1987 and had a great influence on the club then.
He said in pre-match discussion he would dedicate this game to his coach Wayne Bennett.
This is what happens. Dressing room aggression.
Well, I'm going to go to my bloody grave. It's going to be written on the grave, the man who invented face slapping. I think some of the game plans that we produced were quite innovative and different. So I think that there were broader aspects to my coaching career than this tag, the man who invented face slapping.
The face slapping was something to give us a little bit of a warm-up before the game. It was great because we went out and bashed the shit out of Manly. Roy Masters, to me, he was a great coach. He knew what he was doing. But better than that, he just could handle people, you know. He was just great. He could handle people. He could get on with people.
In 1992, Wally Lewis captain-coached the Gold Coast Seagulls, the last of a proud tradition.
The day of the player coach is probably well and truly gone. There's a much more scientific approach to the game than in the days when I played.
Norm Groban, captain-coach of St George for the past 4 seasons, leads his team onto the field.
The pressure of player-coach it's not as bad as the pressure of non-playing coach. How Wayne Bennett keeps continuing to do it is beyond my reasoning. I couldn't do that.
They didn't have a coach. The captain was the coach. I can't imagine how they did that. It just must have been horrific, logistically and everything else. You know, we go away now with about 10 staff.
No, you don't have any more captain coaches. You have assistant coaches. Then you have assistant coaches, tackling coaches. Somebody looks after your diets.
Rugby league is built on people. The team of the century, the players, the fans. But the game would be chaos without the man with the whistle. The one everyone loves to hate.
It's like police. Like, how do you think this world would be if we didn't have police? Well, that's exactly the same as any game would be without a referee. So, yeah, they're a necessary evil.
The game is not over. Don't talk to me. Just go. Just go.
And what's important for a referee is that he needs to be very strong of character, mentally tough. He gets plenty of criticism. It's important that he remains composed and he blanks all those things out.
Concentration, dedication, a love of the game, a willingness to do the job.
But after 100 years, doing the job has changed more for referees than anyone else on a rugby league field.
We've had to try and match the technology on the field with the technology off the field. Everyone, they can sit in the lounge room and say, well, I think that's a try, and it's unfair that a referee on the football field is unable to utilise that sort of technology.
Neil Harrigan is about to make one of the biggest calls ever been made in 100 years of rugby league.
And I'm thinking there's only one decision they can make here, and it has to be a penalty try because he's been taken out. And then I remember hearing from the video box in my earpiece, this will be the decision of the millennium. And it probably was. It was a big talking point, but it was the right one. We ran over one of the posts and scored and gave a penalty try.
Needs up that corner.
Yeah, here it comes.
Modern technology has made the referee's job far easier, and it needed to, because the scrutiny that's on referees in the modern day is far more intense than it ever was.
The referee again, Mr. Greg Hartley.
One referee familiar with scrutiny was Greg Hartley.
Had the nickname Hollywood because every time there was a fight on the TV screen, he was in the middle of it.
Hartley's right in the middle of that. I wish he'd get out of there and leave him to it.
Greg Hartley was without a doubt the best referee of his time. He wanted to become bigger than the game at his time. He felt that as the referee he was equal to any player.
I think Greg was the pioneer of the look at me syndrome. And the league wanted it that way too, as I understand it. The league were keen on the referees being sexy.
There were accusations in the 1978 playoff series that he favoured Manly. In that series, the Manly-Parramatta replay semi-final included a Manly try on the 7th tackle. Manly won that game and eventually got through to the grand final.
How come he gets amnesia and forgets how to count when he's reffing a Parramatta game? He doesn't do it in any other game.
It was there because we saw it on television. We could count it. This was a genuine mistake.
Controversial, flamboyant, but never dull. Loved or despised by the fans, Greg Hartley was also a commentator's dream.
Rex Mossop with Controversy Corner.
I asked Greg Hartley, your friend, before the game, Jack, would he stay on his feet? He said he would, but he didn't. And another 10!
Controversy Corner, it was just a group of 5 blokes chewing the fat. And if anybody disagreed with Rex, then he'd blow up.
It still looks like a try to me, just the same.
Well, I hope you never take up refereeing if that's the case, Ned.
I've never been a referee.
Right.
I'm blind.
Rex Mossop's Sunday morning show was part of a long history of radio and television coverage of the game.
St George versus South Sydney.
The big entertainment is about to begin.
Each era defined by the faces and voices of rugby league.
Now, what do you think of the game?
Well, I think that St George really played fantastic.
Fellas, give him a bone, take him away from me, get him away.
They say the Parramatta Eels can't attack. They attacked today. Glover scored a fine one. And then I can't work under these conditions.
Nobody might win, Mike.
What do you mean by that,
Well,
Jack?
there'll be a lot of emotion out there tonight, and there's 26 players all fired up, and they've only got one man from the TNT Society to look after proceedings.
I just try to convey to the audience the excitement that I'm feeling as a spectator sitting in the best seat in the house.
Television has revolutionised the game, but radio gave it to the people.
Hello everybody, this is commentator Tiger Black reporting on the first test match played at the Sydney Cricket Ground between Great Britain and Australia.
Tiger Black was a joy to be around, fun a minute.
And there it goes. Well, it's high enough, it's long enough too, if it's straight. Oh, a beautiful kick!
I think of Frank Hyde and I think of just a wonderful man. You know, he was obviously a great radio broadcaster. He was a guardian in many ways to younger commentators.
Here at Lang Park, the tinnies are chilled.
I can't imagine ever a match going to air without some bloke screaming his lungs out and a couple of other blokes pontificating about what they did right and what they did wrong. I think it's a rosy future for somebody that wants to be a sports commentator, yeah.
100 years on, rugby league is bigger and brighter than ever.
I'm continually amazed at some of the things they do in the game today as compared with before.
A game built on people.
As the crowd stands as one.
And Australia wins the World Cup.
Another chapter has been written into the record books in the greatest game of all.
The time is ticking down.
From rebellious beginnings, the game has shown its resilience.
It's a pretty tough old boot, rugby league.
I think it's the greatest game of all. That's what keeps us surviving.
Clubs have come and gone,
The Bears claim they have only short-term financial problems.
And loyalty's tested.
The team will wear the traditional St George jersey with the name Illawarra added to the logo.
Challenges remain.
If rugby league is to continue and to be the wonderful sport and continue to grow and be everything that we want it to be, it has to start expanding.
Development will be the key success of the future. It's who wants to play the game in the next 10, 20, 50 years. But there'll be so many more challenges, I hope, that they're never as big as Super League was.
Rugby league bears a scar that some will never forget.
All hell broke loose that weekend.
It appears certain fans will have to choose between two competitions next year.
Super League was to test the loyalty and tribalism on which the game was built.
They laid down and just let the Murdochs and all the people with money just stamp all over us. We should have fought to the death.
I was very, very sad and very hurt and very, very angry about that whole thing. And it was all done for money, and it just about wrecked our game.
Loyalty and tribalism, born of the game's foundation.
I just think it's a people's game.
You know, sometimes it's like going to war, sometimes it's like having a bit of fun with your mates playing touch footy.
People go on a game on a Sunday afternoon and watching their team play, and they forget about everything else.
Part of it is the Australian attitude, you know. You can hate each other on the paddock, and then a minute later you can be mates.
It's one of those games where you really depend on your friends out there.
They're good people. Rugby league people are good people.
It's taught me the value of teamwork, of discipline, of mateship, camaraderie, these sort of strong values which you need in life.
The game of league will go on and be better and bigger than ever.